Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pwn School. Kind of doing a dual Twitch channel stream here tonight. Last night was supposed to be my normal stream, but I had some routine car maintenance I need to get done, tire rotation, and oil change, and that took longer. I had a guest that was going to be on, and so fortunately they were okay. Let me see here what's going on. Can you hear me now? Let me check here and see what's going on. It should be test, test, test. Yeah, okay. So Dallas Stars 12 is messing with me. Okay. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. So at any rate, I had some routine maintenance. So I'm kind of dual streaming tonight since we didn't stream for offensive education on the Hacker Maker channel. Yeah, but I do goof up with the mic sometimes, so I do need don't hesitate in the future to remind me just in case. So at any rate, we're dual streaming tonight. Uh, I've got a guest on to talk about his nonprofit, Parker Doubt. I'll have to see if I'm saying his name correct or not, but he's got a nonprofit that he started called InfoSec Together Information Security Collective. So he's going to be on here joining us shortly to tell us about that. So thanks everyone for joining. Good to see folks on here. I know some of this was kind of late. I had like the meetup information set up, so some folks may have joined from seeing that. So thanks to everyone that showed up for our DC 940. I rebranded the Denton Pwn School meetings as DEF CON 940. I applied for a DEF CON group in for Denton and kind of rebranded, and then we had a really good turnout. So see Zen Voodoo Child, it was awesome seeing you there and Pony there the other night, and anyone else that I may be missing on here that was here the other night. So thanks for showing up. I think the rebranding is going to help because when people are trying to find security groups, a lot of times they go to the local DEF CON list to see what's in their area. It's a lot more recognizable name or global recognition than Pwn School. So I think the rebranding is going to help. We had a good turnout. We had folks from the Dallas community, and then of course members that normally come that are in Denton around those areas that showed up. So we had a pretty good turnout. Some people were coming out to show up and support the first meeting, but it was good to have everyone out. And I think it's going to be where we had like a little over 40. Oh, we got the blind hacker on. Thanks for joining. We got a celebrity in the house. The celebrity of the night. There's always someone pops in. This time it's the blind hacker, which talking to him about being a guest on an upcoming podcast. So you get that to look for. Need to invite Joe to be on the stream sometime. So anyway, so any rate, the first DC 940 meeting went good. So felt like it was a good decision. So we'll be coming up with some t-shirts soon and do like a fundraiser for Innocent Lives Foundation, selling Pwn School or selling DC 940 shirts. Also plan to do some Pwn School shirts coming up again sometime soon too, because we got some designs for that already, and it's been a while since we had Pwn School shirts. Speaking of shirts, this is a really one I think is kind of cool that I got from USecCon. It's kind of hard to see here on the camera, but so I get back here. Yeah, this is the t-shirts from USecCon, which I kind of liked. I like good t-shirt designs. Yeah, you have to be following the blind hacker Joe. He's a cool guy. We actually got to meet, and it's been about 2 years ago since we got to hang out. He was at Texas Cyber Summit, where I'll actually be at next week. LO Punk had a village that it's an okay to be new village that she was running, and Joe come down to help out. So it's been about 2 years since I've seen him. So fortunately, next week I get to go to Texas Cyber Summit. Shane from Innocent Lives Foundation, he's going to be there, which is pretty cool that he's going to be there. Yeah, it's too bad you're not going to be there, Joe. And then also Tim Medine's going to be there. He's presenting there. Ben 10 and some other folks from Trusted Sec are doing the pre-conference training. I don't know how long they're going to be there, if they're going to be there for the pre-conference training and leave after that. So we get there Thursday, and then the talks and stuff that are in person start on Friday. So looking at the comment there from Whoopin Yen. Yeah, I can. Yeah, when it comes to politics, you've had some stuff going on. You do have the right to complain. That's for sure. Kind of as just about anyone in any country pretty much does. But it's not that kind of show. So that kicked off. If anyone hasn't checked out my podcast yet, then you should check it out. I did a interview with Rana Khalil, which is coming out Friday, and I got some other great guests lined up. Gabe Thompson is kind of like an ultra marathoner and a red teamer. I interviewed him the other day, and that'll come out Friday and next week. So got good guests lined up. Got the blind hacker scheduled, and some other folks that will be, I'm sure, of interest that I'm working on scheduling. I actually got Jason Haddock's schedule today. So as long as everyone's schedules still work out, we'll have some as always, we'll have some cool guests on, but just kind of a teaser stuff that's coming up. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. We're here and check. I guess no, the stream has started. And they can join. They're on, I think, West Coast time. So hopefully everyone's getting some good study time in. Hack the box, try hack me, and that kind of stuff. Working towards skilling up. So it looks like we have our guest on here. So, hey, Parker.
Hey, Philip, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, just wrapping up the work day. Gotta enjoy being on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's good. That my schedule kind of aligns with West Coast time better. I want to get up at West Coast time. So when my next company I work for, I need to find a company on the West Coast.
There
So
you go.
how do you pronounce your last name?
Doubt.
Doubt. Okay. So thanks for joining us. So everyone, welcome Parker. He's on here to talk about Information Security Collective. He started a nonprofit, and fortunately, we're one of those industries that people like to give back, and Parker is one of these folks. And he's got a new initiative going, and he'd reached out to me recently, and I invited him to be on the show. So looking forward to hearing more about his organization and find out how we can help. So why don't you tell our guests about yourself, Parker?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm only 25, so I'm a little bit younger than a lot of people in the industry, uh, especially people that start like organizations. I got my bachelor's in physics in 2013. Or sorry, 2017, I finished. Moved on and really got interested in InfoSec then. So I went on to get a master's degree overseas, started working, doing some consultancy work, uh, moved back to the work, got back into consulting, and that's what I do now. But it was just within the last probably year or so is really when I started um, having that kind of drive to get back to the community, because you see everywhere online, everybody's looking for resources, and a lot of great people in our community take the time to reach out, offer whether it's some good links or personal one-on-one coaching. You see every week that there's a new thread for mentorship within the cybersecurity community. So I took that passion and interest and really uh, moved that into a more formal and established organization, which is the Information Security Collective. We just got our 501c3, so nonprofit status here in the US. Um, so we're looking to kind of provide training resources, a collaborative environment, mentorship programs, and then kind of just give back any way that we can.
Oh, awesome. So you got anything coming up? Any kind of initiatives or fundraisers that you currently have going on?
So right now, since we just got the nonprofit status, we're working on trying to set up our first fundraiser. A lot of stuff is a little bit more informal right now, um, more just giveaways that we do online. I know we just partnered with you um, about a week or so ago to give out a few of your books, which I am incredibly thankful for, um, and I think it'll be a great way to kick off the organization.
Good. Happy to help. And that's one of the things about this community. Not everyone has the time to run something full time, but there's always someone willing to give a little something. So that's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm definitely doing it. I still have a full time job. So it is kind of all of my spare time goes into the collective or any other things that I can do to give back, whether that's just offering to answer some questions if people are interested about the field or what certifications might be worth getting, how to get started. So, definitely busy, but I couldn't be happier.
Oh, very cool. It's oh wow, we've got IPSec on. So IPSec a friend of yours?
No, but definitely someone that I look up to in the community.
Yeah, same here. So periodically people like that show up on here, like the blind hackers on Joe Brinkley. So and then IPSec. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've had Mubix on before. Well, actually, I guess it depends on the stream. So Pwn School or My the Hacker Maker podcast, but that's pretty cool to see IPSec on. So that's one of the folks that I recommend to people to watch their YouTube channels. So thanks for joining us, IPSec, along with everyone else. But it's really get starstruck every once in a while when we see someone like that join.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
No, there.
actually saw him what he looked like for the first time last week during the Black Hills stream when they were raising money for Innocent Lives Foundation. Their 24-hour stream, IPSec was under. Normally, you just see his keyboard and not his keyboard, but normally see his monitor. So it was
Yeah.
get to see the man behind the keyboard. So we'll get back on topic. And so that's pretty cool that you got this going. So you got any long term plans or anything that you were a state you'd like to see this organization get to?
Yeah, I think a long-term goal is definitely trying to open up a physical location where people can come in, can sit down on like a workbench with other people that are trying to do CTFs or like try Hack Me, Hack the Box Labs, just kind of offer that physical space, which I know right now might seem a little far out there for the state of everything right now. But I think that's a long-term goal. So right now it's kind of shifting that into an online space, um, getting just a better network of mentors to be able to provide that to a lot of people up and coming within the community, people trying to transfer from other industries.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to looking to get into the industry, so it's good to have those resources. So we kind of mentioned that. If I wanted to also talk to you about what you do for your day job, because I was noticing that you're kind of into the offensive cybersecurity side of things too. So we get a lot of people interested in getting their start. So if you want to kind of share your path in, I mean, you're 25 years old, so you're already pen testing and running a nonprofit to help folks out. So if you don't mind kind of sharing how your path into the industry, because you mentioned that you got a degree in physics. If you can just kind of, describe how you got into the field and the kind of stuff you do in your job.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, so like I said, I got my bachelor's in physics. I initially wanted to do mechanical engineering, and that plan didn't work out. But during my bachelor's, I started taking some computer science courses, got really interested in programming, and then kind of just over one summer, uh, started watching a few like Hack 5 videos and a few different tutorials on like Kali Linux. And so that's really where that passion came from. And so I decided to just pursue that career path because I knew it would be something that would have long term stability. Uh, and so I just decided to pursue a master's degree that didn't require necessarily a computer science background to move into it. Um, and from there, I did that course, learned a lot about the fundamentals, as well as like IT law and ethics. So, kind of more of a well rounded picture of information security. From that program, transitioned into an internship with Ernst& and Young doing pen test consulting. Did that for about a year. Moved back here to the States, and then really just continued on that like red team offensive, moving in to do more internal pen testing and red team, and then finally moved back into consulting, and that's what I do now. So a day-to-day web apps, some mobile, some network, just getting to practice everything that I learned and enjoying it every day.
That's good. So if you pick something that you like best, or are you still just kind of enjoying all of it?
I enjoy all of it. I definitely want to explore a bit more on mobile and network just because a lot of my background is web app. So I got a few different certifications through eLearn Security, and that's kind of the only certifications I have now. Uh, but have been incredibly useful in not only like getting a job, but applying those skills to my job. And so right now I'm going through and boosting a little bit more of my network security through some of the TCM security courses.
Oh, that's great. Good stuff there. So yeah, it's I remember when I was kind of getting started out, I'd worked in security and then application security. And my first year of pen testing, I was doing application and network, and I moved over to this team where I was purely, I think it's like my second year or the last year I was with the company. I moved over. I started out consulting as well. So I moved over. I was purely doing application. So I really missed getting to do network too. So I switched jobs to be able to get to do some of the network stuff too. So after a while, you kind of get to where you might want to specialize. Some people don't. You take some people. I had Tiberius on my podcast where he started out doing network pen testing, and then he really got into and enjoyed the application pen testing, and that's the kind of stuff he does now. So just sometimes it's good to specialize. But so since you're kind of freshly into the industry, what advice would you give someone that wanted to get into offensive cybersecurity as a red team or a pen tester?
Yeah, I definitely say that you're never too old or too young to kind of explore information security. Whatever your background is, there are plenty of resources available. Whether you want to do a more formal like degree, certifications, or just look at the online resources that are available. Um, Kind of just, I'd say start with the basics because I think that'll give you the best understanding. But as soon as you find something you're interested in, feel free to explore it. There's really no harm, no risk if you do it um, the right way. Because there are plenty of ways to do it the wrong way. Um, but I think there's a lot of resources available to do it safely and legally. Uh,
Yeah. So what do you do in your spare time? If you're not studying for a certification, do you like to do CTFs or hack the box or anything like that to help with your skills?
yeah, before I really lost a lot of my free time to the nonprofit, it was doing certifications, some like hack the box I started out doing. Never didn't get a chance to really try hack me yet, but it's something I'm looking at exploring and because I've heard a lot of great things about it. And then I do like to get like de-stress and get kind of away from cyber for a little bit. So I try to do like hiking. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so there's plenty of trails. Get away from the computer a little bit just to reduce a little bit of that possible burnout, which is pretty common when you're on the computer doing like the same thing day in, day out.
Yeah, that's good. Good that you figured that early on. Sometimes people wait so long before they do. They're burnout when they figure it out. So it's good that you're kind of you know, kind of make sure you do that before you get burnt out. So those are good ways to handle stress getting out. One of the things I noticed that helped me last year during the pandemic is most of the past since 2012, most of my jobs, as a consultant, I would go on site, but my office was at home. And then, I worked for a company where I was 100% remote working at home. And then I went into a company working in office and we were there on site for about 3 months. But it's just with the pandemic, the total isolation, my wife and I, we saw each other, but you didn't really have all the friends and coworkers and stuff to hang out with. So, work going for walks in the evenings and stuff was kind of a way to get out in nature and help with stress and mental health.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I before I started at this current role, I was in my last role for I think 3 months, maybe 2.5 before the lockdown kicked in. So I'd been able to kind of establish a little bit of friendship with my like core team before that lockdown. But then I transitioned jobs during the lockdown. And so I think I met in person maybe one or two people from my team um, for about a good probably 9 months. So it was a lot of just everything over Teams or Slack. And then finally, when DEF CON came around, luckily my company was able to like get us all out there to do that. So I got to meet a lot of people from both like locally and then the rest of the company.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
but it can be definitely a challenge when you're um, either stuck at home um, and then you're either working in your living room or hopefully like a spare room that you might have. So it can be hard to find that kind of social interaction, especially earlier on.
Yeah, and I know you guys there on the West Coast had a lot more lockdowns. I'm near Dallas. I live in Texas, so we had some lockdowns, but it wasn't that bad. So I know you from having friends there in California, that a lot of folks had to go through quite a few or long lockdowns. So I'm sure that was especially tough.
Yeah, so we just went through another one here in Oregon of probably a month or two ago. Everything started to open back up and then locked back down again. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. Luckily, my work's pretty flexible, so I'm in the office right now. But if I wanted to be at home, I could. I do just like being able to get away from home for a little bit and kind of separate that work and home.
Yeah. So when you were working from home and weren't going into the office, how did you handle just kind of from a mental state standpoint? You're in the same place all the time. Did you ever do anything to kind of break it up when you're in your home office to so that way you're not getting burnt out and so on?
Oh yeah. So I was lucky. I did have like a home office that I could kind of go into, do my 9 to 5, take a few breaks. But once like work was done, I was able to just like physically leave that space, and that helped with like a differentiation between work time and like relaxation time. But I was also one of the many number of people who um, got a COVID pet, so that really helped having a reason to kind of get out of the house, go to like the dog park, um, go on walks at lunch in the evening, which really helped as well.
Yeah, it's good. Back to that nature, you see a lot of people were doing their vacations and stuff, going to national parks when they're open or just, parks in general, because that was some of the only options there for a while. You really couldn't go to theaters or concerts or malls or different, you know, restaurants and stores and stuff. So that was like one of the options. So that's good. So what kind of dog did you get?
So we have a pit bull. She's just turned 16 months. We got her last July. She's a half American pit bull terrier, half American bully. So she's 70 pounds, give or take a pound or two here and there, but just a ball of love.
That's great. Yeah, I got a friend that has a boxer. They'd moved off. Actually, they were kind of in the Oregon area for a while, but that dog, however big it was, thought it was a lap dog, but she was a very sweet dog, always wanting to be in your lap or on you and stuff. But it's kind of funny.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
it's
yeah,
nice.
yeah, it's definitely good. We're cat people, so I've got a 20-year-old calico cat that that that's pretty affectionate. She's, at night is my time, so she usually spends time with me in the evening, and then my wife in the mornings and stuff. So it's pretty funny. You get really attached to them because she'll be 21 coming up in March.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely I appreciate having a puppy, so she's full of energy, but it definitely can at times be like you just be a little older, sleep all day, and we'll go to the park on the weekends.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things with having a cat. I enjoy having an older cat because when they're kittens and stuff, they're getting into everything. So sometimes it's more mature animals can be a little easier
Yeah,
sometimes. But that's good when you at least to get them younger. I mean, it is good for people to get pets that have been abandoned or need to find a new home. That's a good thing. But I really like that we got our pet when she was young and she grew up around us, because sometimes it can be difficult taking in a pet like that someone else has had for years and
yeah,
trying to overcome any kind of trauma they may have went through.
absolutely.
So how do you like consulting? You think you're going to stay with consulting, or do you see yourself eventually going in somewhere one day and just working like as an internal resource?
So having had both like experiences, I started out consulting, and it wasn't even like a career path that I or like job role that I'd really thought about before
Mhm.
getting in, because I'd always just expected to be kind of that internal resource. So someone that would be testing the internal apps or responding to um, like internal like requirements. So getting into consulting, I really enjoy right now. And having seen both, I do like the kind of variety that it gives because you can work for different like customers. So one week you might be working for a bank, and the next week you might be working for a library or like just an oil and gas company. So you just kind of have that flexibility to kind of find new vulnerability types, work on different like technologies. So whether you're doing like Apache uh, or even just some of the more like JavaScript, like React driven applications, you just never know, which is always a fun challenge to have. Keeps you up to date on all your skills too.
Yeah, that is a good thing because if you're sometimes you're in the same environment, then testing the same thing over and over again sometimes can be kind of boring. So that is good sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other advice that you'd give someone that's starting out?
I think to somebody starting out, I'd just say there are no stupid questions. Um, Everybody's really welcoming in the committee or in the community. So if you do want to just post something on Twitter, you can always like tag it #infosec. There are plenty of people that'll either help you out or point you in the right direction. I definitely do encourage people to do a little bit of like self-driven learning. Um, you can always ask questions, but once you learn um, how to kind of find information for yourself, I think it'll really um, get you on your way to kind of advancing that knowledge base and get you started getting ready for a career.
So as far as your career and stuff is, what do you do because there's a lot of stuff you got to learn. How do you keep track of all the things you're learning? Is there anything you use to keep your notes in, or because I know a lot of things you might see something now, but you don't see it for a few months and you come back. So how do you kind of keep track with that stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's can you can see something somebody will post a POC or a new like vulnerability finding they'll have on Twitter, and then a few months later you might run into it down the line on a test. So I like to kind of like bookmark different tweets or something that I find interesting, screenshot it and keep it in just like a note. Whether I'm using like Cherry Tree or I like to use Atom as like just a general note taking app on my computer. So just kind of yeah,
Yeah,
plugging those in somewhere to refer to them later if I might run into them or uh, using even Twitter is just kind of a almost like a notebook as well.
it's a good idea. Yeah, when I was earlier in my pen testing career, I'd come across stuff and actually, because when I started out as a pen tester, I did not know how to hack, so I had to learn the hacking skills, and I was going through the OSCP. And one of the things I ran into, and and you're not always going to be able to find stuff on Internet Archive the way back Time Machine. So I was looking for like opcodes for buffer overflows for the OSCP, and one of the resources had gone away. And I think I ended up finding a link to it or somewhere, or someone had took the information and it was somewhere else. But that's where I really learned to start keeping stuff in notes. So I'm a big fan of Evernote for the stuff I'm using. Pen test notes, of course not, because you don't want anything in the cloud because it ever gets breached. They got customer information. That's a good tip for people just getting started out. But be able to take a screenshot within the web clipping function within your browser and save that stuff, because I like Evernote because you can save the whole page, or you can clip like a screenshot, or you can save the URL. So it's a really nice tool to keep up with the notes. And I've seen some other ones that TJ Null was recommending Joplin, so that's a good free open source tool to use. I think they have a cloud feature too, so that people definitely want to be careful saving that information, because if you got customer information, you don't want to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're doing like work related stuff, you definitely want to be careful. Or if you're doing something for um, different types of like bug bounty programs, you definitely do want to keep that in mind because you never know what might get compromised down the line. Um, so I'd say if you're working on anything sensitive, it's good to keep that local or even on like a physical notebook. Uh, but yeah, I think a lot of people overlook how important like note taking can be, and having that resource to just come back to whether you're wrapping up a test or referring to like notes or something.
So Zen Voodoo Child has a question. What are your thoughts on Evernote and OneNote? So do you have any experience with those, or I can take
Uh,
that question?
yeah, I'd just say that I used OneNote um, during like my master's degree just to keep notes separated for different like classes and stuff. And so I think it's really useful. You are at the behest of Microsoft, um, but I think it does have a lot of good features that can be used to separate whether you're working through different certifications or wanting to classify things for like different technologies or different like coding languages.
Yeah. So as far as my opinion on that, it's I like where I like internally at the company I work for, I use OneNote for my internal notes. So things related to our company, I use my general pen test notes that I just carry with me everywhere. Then I keep that in Evernote. But they both can be leveraged about the same. I don't think OneNote has like the web clipping feature, but they both work really good. And I've seen, you can really organize things well using either one. I'm trying to think, I'm not sure if OneNote comes in a free version or not. That's the only thing I'm not sure. So in the workplace, most places you're going to have Microsoft Office and you got OneNote, but otherwise, Evernote, I think they have a free version, but I got the pro version or the paid version because you can attach PDFs. And when you do your searches, you can actually search through the PDFs too. So the free version doesn't search the content of PDFs, but the paid version does. So that's kind of been my experience. But the cool thing about Crash Fried mentioned Joplin there. One of the cool things about Joplin, they do have a web clipping feature, and TJ Null has like a checklist that he come up with for the OSCP, that there's a template. So that little template you can pull into your notes, and when you're doing the OSCP or practicing like in your labs doing a pen test, it kind of gives you steps on how to do those different things. So he's got some great templates there. Shiny Buttons asked, "What about Obsidian? Have you worked with Obsidian?"
I have not, so but it might be something fun to look into.
I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. Some people that I know that are pretty, you know, highly skilled folks. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if Obsidian you can actually run code through it, or it helps maintain the code, because some of the other note taking tools, it's kind of harder to copy and paste that code into something and run the code that way. But I've heard a lot of good things about Obsidian. But like a lot of other things, try it out, install it and see if you like it or not. Someone else may think it's horrible, but you may love it. So everyone has their own taste.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes just kind of for the like information security in general. It's like you might find a type of vulnerability you really like that a lot of people hate. Um, You
Yes,
might like
like the blue team.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but yeah, I
So,
mean,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, some people really like um, doing more of the like defensive. So, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So, I just think as long as you work on something you really like doing, um, like they say, if you work on something you love, does it really work?
Yeah,
So, it's just enjoy what you're doing, and then I think that helps a lot.
yeah. So some of my best friends are blue teamers. So got a thumbs up from, IPSec on Obsidian, so usually with folks like this, they're really smart guys like IPSec, they use these tools like that, that's the people learn from. There's a guy in our Dallas community that is really good at obfuscation. He plays around with a lot of different tools to obfuscate code to get exploits to run, and I think he uses Obsidian, so I need to check that out myself. So if IPSec says it's good, then there's got to be something to it.
Yeah, definitely have to check it out.
So you got any conferences coming up the remainder of the year that you're going to?
Nothing that I can think of. We got some stuff going on later in 2022, um, and then always looking forward to DEF CON, of course.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I was going to go this year, but I had my plane ticket and hotel booked, and my daughter came up between the time that I got my travel booked and had to go to the hospital and get her gallbladder removed, which was an issue she'd been having for like 5 or 6 years. And finally it was figured out and diagnosed. So I was planning. She went in on a Wednesday. I was going to be leaving out on Thursday, and I was really not wanting to be out of town in case she had any problems. So I canceled my plans. I was really looking forward to going, but we'll be going next year. I went to the two DEF cons before the pandemic and had a blast. I'd kind of, and one of the things I'll, share here too, people, some of my experience throughout my life and career. When you get a chance to do stuff like DEF CON or this is anything, somewhere fun, don't pass on those chances, do it. Because one of the things I ran into was as a consultant, my bonuses were based on billable hours. So I would not take time off in the middle of the year because I would wait to the end of the year. And there's a lot of stuff as a consultant at the end of the year, but I knew if I went to DEF CON that maybe DEF CON would fall right in the middle of a big pen test. So, since I did Wi-Fi application and network, most of my projects would be encompass all. So it could be 3 or 4 week projects. And sometimes those projects paid a little better. They could be with bigger customers. And so I didn't want to miss out on part of the project. So I never went to DEF CON until I got out of consulting. So I really wished I'd went sooner. I'm sure it would have changed a lot of things the way I do things now, and probably would have done some things sooner if I'd went.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. My company was awesome and paid for our airfare and our hotel and flew everybody out there. It was my first DEF CON. Really enjoyed it. I know it's a little different with having to kind of be kind of a hybrid in person online, but I think it was a good kind of first experience. So hopefully next year might be more in person. I know a lot of people were wary just with the state of everything, and I think you did make the right choice. It's more important to be with family, especially when you don't know what's going to happen. You just never know.
Yeah.
Um,
And kind of what I base that on too is the day she had to go to the hospital, because she's been to the emergency room probably 2 or 3 times because of her gallbladder, and they never knew what it was. But I was at dinner, and we were about 20 miles from where she was living. And so getting cashed out at the restaurant, trying to hurry up and get to where she is at to pick her up, take her to the hospital because uh, she was at her boyfriend's parents' house and they were up at the casino. So she's by herself. There's a casino in Oklahoma. So they're up there. So she's by herself and couldn't drive herself. And so I was just the panic to get there, to get her to the hospital. And so I can just imagine trying to get back from Vegas on a plane when at this point you have to change your flight, maybe ride standby and all that kind of anxiety to get back. I didn't want to deal with it. So looking forward to next year. Definitely looking forward, and hopefully maybe even go to Black Hat. Did you get to go to Black Hat too?
I didn't. I was there for like the last day, but it was also my first time in Vegas, so I wanted to take in a little bit of the sights before
Oh,
jumping
cool.
into the conference.
Any good restaurants that you liked best while you're out there?
Um, None that really stood out. I mean, everything was really good. We had a fantastic steak dinner in one of the casinos. What I did really enjoy is I had heard of this like art installation, Omega Mart. Um, so I went out and did that. It's kind of a weird um, alternate reality game, um, physical like art installation in Area 15. So if anybody's interested in that, it's kind of like a mix of online, like interactive entertainment, and then getting to do stuff in person as well.
Oh, very cool. And just kind of a reminder here, I tell let folks know if you do exclamation point guest, you can get Parker's social media information. So you have his Twitter, his nonprofit Twitter, and his LinkedIn. So hopefully I didn't share too much social media with the folks.
Nope, it's incredible. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. They if most people listening on here, they would figure out how to find you anyway. So
Oh
find
yeah,
your LinkedIn profile anyway. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I haven't been to Black Hat, but I do a podcast called the Hacker Factory Podcast and ITSP Magazine. They've been like media partners with Black Hat and DEF CON. So I did a couple special podcast episodes for it. And then they kind of told me, since they thought I was going out to Vegas for DEF CON, to say, hey, you can get a media pass, since you do podcasts for ITSP magazine. So I could have got into Black Hat for the first time. I had never been. And from what everyone says, if you like the corporate manager type stuff, then Black Hat's the one to go to. But most people like DEF CON more. So I would definitely like to check out Black Hat though sometime.
yeah, that's what I've heard as well. That kind of DEF CON's the more corporate side of InfoSec, whereas like DEF CON would be more of the hands-on, more practical side, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to go at some point.
Yeah. From what I hear, some people say if you like RSA, then you'll like Black Hat. So I've never been to the RSA conference in person. I was there in 2019. I was a Bug Crowd ambassador, and Bug Crowd flew some of the ambassadors out to go to their headquarters and kind of spend some time together. And I got out there earlier because I was involved in Rachel Tobeck's keynote speech at B-side San Francisco. She did a talk called was nonlinear paths to information security, and then on Twitter back like probably November, December before B-side San Francisco, she kind of tweeted out, "Is there anyone that has any nonlinear paths to information security?" And I shared my story because I don't know if you know my story, but I started out as a pro wrestler and even wrestled a bear, went into AutoCAD, sysadmin, and then into security. So I had tweeted that story. And so she invited me, as well as two other people, to give their stories. And so that was kind of cool. So I was out there for that. And so I got to attend that. So if you ever get a chance to attend B-Sides San Francisco, it's one of the best B-Sides conferences I've been to. Because, being there in San Francisco, there's a lot of really sharp people that show up. The lady that was the founder and CEO of YubiKey, or Yubico is the name of the company, but she was there doing a talk on passwordless authentication. And then the heads up display for OWASP Zap had just come out too. So some of the developers for that, I believe some of the developers or someone anyway, did a demo of the heads up display for Zap. So it was a really cool conference. Got to meet Daniel Miesler there. So that was pretty cool. Jason Street's really good friends with him, and he introduced us. So got to meet some really cool people there, and got to meet Paul Asadorian there from Paul Security Weekly during the Bug Crowd party they had that week.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to put it on my list. I definitely want to get out into a lot more like conferences and attend, just kind of attend them and get to network and meet a lot of people. I think that's one thing that is really great about the community. Going back to like your transition and the non-traditional way a lot of people can get into to infosec is just great because not a lot of industries are like that. And then adding on, um, I think there's just so many like great people. Everybody's so friendly and welcoming. So you just go to different conferences and you just get to meet a lot of people who are really passionate about the same thing that you are.
Yeah, that is it is a little more welcoming, I think, than some industries and stuff in so many different ways in because on my podcast I have had people that Joe Vest was one of my recent guests, and Joe Vest works for the company that acquired Cobalt Strike. But whenever he was going to college, he was originally going to school to be an herbalist,
Wow.
and so he ended up becoming a system administrator. Interesting the way our paths were pretty close. I mean, once we got into IT, he started out as a sysadmin, and so did I back in '97. And I moved into security like in 2004, and he moved in like in 2008 or 2009. And then when he started in offensive security, or when he got into security, he was doing more of the red team type stuff. So he got to do red teaming before it was really become as popular and well known as it is now. So it's just interesting to hear the different stories because you hear people all the time ask, is 30, 40, or 50 too old to get in the industry? And you hear all these stories. I mean, I've got a good friend of mine that went into pen testing when he's 50 years old. I had a former student that she was like close to 50 as she wasn't 50 when she got her first technical job was pen testing. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's amazing. You can be a 13-year-old who got your saw a couple hacking videos online, and you're like, well, cool, that's what I want to do. Or a lot of people who got started hacking like Xboxes and then made the transition. Or you could be 50 and then just be looking for something new.
yep. Yeah, that's one of the things I've done through my career is just follow stuff I'm interested in. Because I first did AutoCAD because I was tired. I did manual labor. I'd got out of pro wrestling because I wasn't doing it enough to make a living off of it. And then just to put the time and effort, you don't know if you're ever going to make it because there's a lot of people. I went to wrestling school or they were wrestling at the same time that never really made a living off of it. And there's so much risk of injury and that sort of thing. So yeah, the age difference and it's just amazing that you can get in later in life. I really don't hear any much about age discrimination because I'm not exactly young myself. I'm in my mid 50s, but I've got uh, you know other friends that are in their 50s and some people in early 60s that I don't hear complaining about age discrimination or anything. But I think we're kind of in an age too that people aren't at jobs for 20 years. Sometimes they don't have the option to be there because companies get acquired or they go out of business or new management comes in. They have to make changes and people leave the company and so forth. So a lot of people don't stay very. There's not the option to stay that long. Although the longest job of my career, I worked for a mortgage company, and I started out there as a sysadmin, and then moved into network security, eventually AppSec, and so I was there for like 14 years or so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, depending on where you are, um, I've heard of people that, I mean, spend a year or less at a company, um, and then just move to the next new adventure. Um, I don't know if a lot of that has to do with the pay bonuses that you can get, or just kind of keeping finding whatever like that new interest is and seeking that at a different place. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think my longest job was like 4 years doing retail,
Yeah.
and then I've been doing about a year or so, um, just in different like infosec roles.
So I imagine the customer service skills you gain has probably helped you with consulting, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was definitely a big help. Going from somebody who was really like introverted and didn't really enjoy public speaking, um, doing customer service roles really helped that, and I think has made consulting a little bit easier than it would be otherwise.
Well, that's good. That's very, very cool. So what's the coolest kind of pen test you've done? The most interesting pen test have you done so far?
The most interesting, without going into like too many like specifics,
Yeah.
um, I did one for a big like multinational um, like oil and gas company and found a finding for like complete just account takeover um, for any account as long as you knew their email address, which is pretty easy. Um, but I mean, it's definitely not like the flashiest finding or like a remote code execution, um, but it's just something you wouldn't expect for such a large company. Um, and sometimes the smallest like things that get overlooked can have a really big impact.
Yeah, and especially I think when you get into some of these companies that have been around a long time, there's so much there that can be found because they've migrated from this system. You know, you take a lot of companies that may have been on Novell NetWare for their main network operating system, and then Microsoft became the predominant one. So moving over to Microsoft Active Directory and things like that, there's so much stuff that really didn't get cleaned up and retired like it should have. And so, yeah, so you can run into some interesting stuff. I did a pen test one time for, I forget, I'm not even going to say where it's at in the Fortune. It's like in the Fortune 100 at least, the chemical company. One time I did a side pen test for a friend of mine that had a consulting company, and this was in 2008, and they were still running Windows XP in their environment. And that's how I kind of got my foothold. And it's crazy too, because, you know, we were doing kind of a more of a red teaming engagement, kind of black box type pen test, because they were trying to get us to go undetected. And we were on site for like 12 hours, and I was being noisy. I was even running like Nessus, and I'd ran responder and dumped some password hashes and stuff. And they didn't even know we were there until we're gone. I mean, I even created a user account on the XP machine, and they didn't even realize we were there until after we've been gone for 12 hours. And we actually snuck into their office and hid out in one of their little small visitor conference rooms. And we were there all day. And it's funny because we tailgated people to get in, and I was worried. I was getting ready. I had to go out to the restroom. And so when I left, I was, you know, hoping the guy I was working for would be in the break room to let me in. But I didn't have a problem getting back in the office because I was walking up the door. A person was leaving the break room. Say, "Hey, are you going in here?" Yes. And so they let me right back in without seeing the badge. So it's just some of these well-established companies. Sometimes you just don't, things aren't always that secure. And especially when they're coming from more of a different type of area too, you know, kind of old school type of companies like your oil and gas kind of things too. You run into some serious vulnerabilities sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be surprised. Just, I mean, environments that run outdated um, OS or just different like old versions of software, just because it's too difficult or maybe inconvenient to deploy the change over a large network. And then, I mean, if you're not really interested in doing stuff on like the computer, you could always do more social engineering aspects of like offensive security.
So how do you like social engineering? You get to do much of that?
I don't get to do a whole lot of it now, but it's something I'm interested in. So I like hearing stories from coworkers and friends that get to do it, and look forward to being able to do it myself.
Yeah. So if you ever get to go for some training, Chris Hadnagy's company, Social Engineer or Social Engineering, they run like a conference each year. And I think it's like 2 days or something like that, or maybe 1 or 2 days. And it's pretty much all social engineering. So that I would like to go to that one someday.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we're getting down the last few minutes of the show. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience?
Nothing off the top of my head. I just say keep an eye on different socials. Posting a lot on Twitter. Um, New stuff coming out with the collective. Like I said at the beginning, we're doing that giveaway with you, both on LinkedIn as well as Twitter, for a few copies of your book. So definitely worth checking that out if you're trying to win something free. Um, but yeah, no, definitely thank you so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, thanks for being a guest, and congrats on your newly formed organization, and great to see you doing what you're doing. Thanks for what you're doing for the community. I think you're going to realize, or once you get into this, that you've really done a good thing, and that it's well worth the while. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and congratulations, I know, on your uh, new DEF CON group in Texas.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we rebranded, and I think it's good. It's a good thing to begin with, because the biggest meeting we had was like a little under 50 when Ben 10 from Trusted Sec did a workshop for us. Because Papa Shell, that's one of my co-hosts, Ben 10 was doing a pen test for them, and he had talked to Ben. He knew Ben, and he was telling, I think he may have been wearing a Pwn School shirt to work or something one day, and he was asking him what that was, and he kind of told him about the meetup and stuff, and he said he'd like to do a workshop sometime. So we got, thanks to Papa Shell, we got that all lined up. He come out and did it, and so we had like close to 50 people, but the other night we had over 40 people. So that's like the second biggest meetup we had as a group, because, basically we're rebranded, but so yeah, it turned out pretty well. And so thanks. Yeah, it's bringing more recognition because people know the DEF CON groups. And so they're looking for organizations. They're going to know that name better than they would Pwn School. So I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, well, it's always good to just have that resource for people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's a good town too, because it's a college town, and I'm not really sure about the Texas Women's University, but there's like a community college there, and then there's the University of North Texas that has cybersecurity programs, and so it's a good place for it. I mean, there was no cybersecurity community there, and so we've been there for over 3 years, and now rebranded as DEF CON 940. But we had people coming in from over 30 miles away, someone coming from Cleburne, and Fort Worth is about 30 to 35 miles away from Denton, Texas. And this guy lived south of Cleburne. So he came probably a good 40 miles to join the meeting.
Yeah, well, if you build it, they will come.
Yep. Well, if anyone has any questions, we've got about a minute left here, but this has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Cybertish says, "Hey, I don't know if you follow Cybertish on
Yeah.
Twitter."
Hey, everybody.
Well, thanks everyone for joining, and it was awesome to see everyone, and thanks for being a guest. And it was a real surprise to see the blind hacker and IPSec on tonight. Of course, we appreciate everyone, but every once in a while you see those people that, hey, I know that person there, and when they take the time to join, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.